Hey girl, welcome back to another episode of Rock That Fitness with Anna Rockstar. And today on our show, we have Brett Scranton. He's been here before and one of my great friends. We talk a lot about science and health and fitness. He loves to geek out about all these things like I do. And today we're going to dive into the topic of cardiovascular disease. And this is real exciting because Brett and I discussed and decided that we wanted to do a 4-part series on the 4 horsemen of chronic disease. And this is going to be the first one on cardiovascular disease. So we're going to dive right in now. Hey, Brett, welcome to the show. Brett, I called you Brett. Brett, welcome to the show. I am not talking very well today. Welcome back, dude.
Thank you. I feel welcome.
Okay, I know we spent some time talking today on the phone, and we have long spans of not talking, but every time we do, we're always getting into the weeds when it comes to science and our health, and so I'm excited for us to get into this stuff. And my goal is that we can just keep it simple, and actually that's going to help us and impact our health in a positive way. So before we do, Brett, could you give us, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and why. Why are you getting into all this health stuff? What is it with you? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm 59 years old. I got into fitness about 5 years ago and changed my body composition from about 25% body fat down to something around 10 to 12 right now, and really enjoying the results of that. So much so that I even got my certified personal trainer certification from National Academy of Sports Medicine, became kind of a longevity coach for a bit. So really enjoying learning about ways, protocols we can do to be healthier and more vital and live more quality years of life. So it's all very interesting to me.
Yeah, the best. I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So I don't know, why is this so important? Because, well, I was listening to a book recently. I'm going to tell you right now, full transparency, I haven't completed the book, but because it's so in depth, it's so comprehensive. It's a book by Peter Attia called Outlive. It's a fantastic book if you really love the science behind our health and learning about health span. And I really got into it. I was like, man, as a nurse, it just really spoke to me because I remember working in the hospital, and whenever you're working with people who are ill and they have these chronic diseases, it's sad because that they're here and they're sick and there's nothing you can really do to fix it. You have to deal with the symptoms, and you have to try to improve their condition now so it doesn't continue to decline. But these chronic diseases don't just pop up. They start a long time ago. Early on in our lives. And so as we're aging, if we did not take care of our bodies optimally, then these are the 4 chronic diseases. The 4 horsemen is how Peter Attia talks about that. Do you want to give us a little introduction about that 4 horsemen idea or concept?
Yeah, for sure. And so you listed them already, but real quickly, once again, today's episode is cardiovascular disease. It's the number 1 killer of Americans. It kills 1 in 4 Americans each year. So it's major. And I think it's not well known of, the significance of it. So we're going to cover that today. Another one's cancer. That's a big tent that has lots of different conditions in it. Third one is neurodegenerative stuff, so like Alzheimer, dementia. And then the fourth one is real important too. Of course, they all are. And that's metabolic disease, so things like type 2 diabetes. But one thing I just had to Google because I was curious, why did he come up with the name the 4 horsemen of chronic disease? And apparently, and probably most people know this, but I just had to be reminded, it's named after the 4 figures that appear in the Bible's book of Revelation. So So it symbolizes the coming of 4 cataclysmic events: war, famine, pestilence, and death. So
Interesting. That
aptly
is interesting.
named. Yeah.
Yeah. So Brett and I were talking about this as a topic for an episode, and we're like, man, this is a lot. So we said, let's do 4-part episode on the 4 Horsemen of Chronic Diseases. And so, yeah, we're definitely gonna talk about cardiovascular first because it is the number one killer. It's a silent killer that we definitely need to be aware of. And just because it's on my mind right now, real quick before we head into this, I'll tell you, like, on my own personal experience with this. I don't think I have any history of heart disease in my family. I don't think. But I will say that I had super ventricular tachycardia. Um, and I started having this condition off and on throughout my young adult and later adult life, but it really started to act up when I was heavy and overweight, obese, which means, like, just for no reason out of the blue, my heart would just skyrocket with a heart rate that was crazy, and it wasn't induced by exercise; it would just out of the blue happen. That's what they call supraventricular tachycardia because it was happening in the ventricle. That's part of the heart.
Interesting.
So I have been able to, since I have lost a significant amount of weight, 60 pounds. Most of that, of course, is fat. But since then, I have really not had episodes anymore. So we can actually change our health and the trajectory of where we're going with our health and these things. So anyway, so it was near and dear to me because cardiovascular health is very, very important. I mean, our heart is beating and taking care of, us all day long. Like, if our heart wasn't beating, we wouldn't be alive. It's like, I remember being afraid, like my heart was going to stop, and I wanted to make sure, like, does my husband know how to do CPR if something happens to me in the middle of the night? Like, this is serious. So yeah. So let's go ahead and get into this cardiovascular disease. And I know you wanted to give us, so how I'm going to do this episode, Brett, you and I talked about, just to keep things simple, I'm just going to go kind of in a sort of like an interview / conversation way to go about this. So can you give our listeners and tell us just basically what is the basic definition of cardiovascular disease?
Yeah, for sure. And so I wanted to give my little backstory too. So
go
you,
ahead. Why don't you do that first?
I got my own story of why I'm interested in this. And I've always lived with high cholesterol. And, before 5 years ago, I would say I wasn't the best at diet and nutrition. But since then, I've really fine-tuned that and gotten good at that. But still, my cholesterol numbers are quite high. So, you're just told by your primary doctor, that's normal, that's in the normal range. But as I was reading Dr. Atia's book and learning more about really the risks that are involved with these various metrics, it's like, I need to dig into this more and maybe take action, so met with a cardiologist, learned a lot more about my risk, and I'm mitigating it now because I opened my eyes and learned more about what to do.
Yeah. And go ahead and give us the definition for us because I have something I want to say about it, but I think the definition needs to come first. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think heart disease is a big tent idea, but basically cardiovascular disease or heart disease is used to describe various health problems involving the heart or the blood vessels. So that's our arteries, veins, capillaries. So it includes everything from coronary artery disease, which is the plaque buildup in our arteries, high blood pressure, which a lot of people have, a heart attack, a stroke, and other things like, congestive heart failure and what have you. So it's kind of an all-encompassing definition.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. The reason I said that is because, like, obviously for you were like, well, I'm concerned about my cholesterol. And for me, it was more like I was concerned about the condition of my heart. But like you say, those are the two things, because with cholesterol, it's having to do with your arteries and your vessels. And for me, my heart is the pump that's pumping the blood through those arteries and those vessels. And one of the things and I always like to take these more complicated concepts and keep them simple. And the way to think about this is if your arteries are caked up on the inside, there's not a lot of space in there for the blood to flow freely. And so when you have a lot of plaque buildup in there, then the heart has to work harder to push that through there. If you can imagine, like pipes, basically pipes. So if your pipes, your pipes are all caked up, then that water's not going to flow through very well at all, no matter how much you pump that. So what happens is your heart is going to have to work overtime. So both of these things are important. Your cardiovascular health and having having a strong heart, a strong, healthy heart, and having clear, healthy arteries and vessels. So just for anybody who doesn't really think about this very much, because it's truly phenomenal how our bodies work.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and we kind of maybe covered this a little bit already, but it's the number one killer in cause of death in the United States. 1 in 4 Americans will die of heart disease each year, and almost half of the people in the U.S. have some form of cardiovascular disease. So it's really significant. But the good news, or the silver lining that we're really going to talk about today, is it's more easily prevented than either cancer or Alzheimer's. So there's a lot of protocols that we can do.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to that. Can we talk about the connection, though, between cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular health, and our health span?
Oh, absolutely. And so if you can imagine, and we can't share a graphic, but there's a graph, and a human life is maybe, if we're lucky, something like around 80 years plus or minus, and it goes in a declining, graph. But with lifestyle interventions, diet, exercise, other things, we can essentially push that graph out to not only grab maybe up to 10 more years of life, but more importantly is improve the function of our health. So we call that our health span. So by doing the right things and avoiding the wrong things, we can kind of mitigate a lot of these 4 horsemen of chronic health by achieving, longer, but also better health span or quality of life.
Yeah. And that's important to know, because it's funny, because we don't really come to understand this or become aware of it until later in life. And sadly, a lot of times it's not until there's a problem.
Yeah.
So as parents, as grandparents, we need to be passing on this very important information to our kids and our grandkids.
And that's a really good point. In fact, I had a little quote I found. This is a quote attributed to Michael Phelps. And he said, "The problem with heart disease is that the very first symptom is often fatal." So we don't get warning signs. We don't have markers that tell us, "Oh, okay, how is your heart doing?" It kind of just shows up and tries to kill us all at once,
Yeah. That's why it's called the silent killer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's scary.
Yeah.
I just did this math here real quick while we were talking about this. Your heart beats in a 24-hour period. This is just on average beats, depends, 60 to 80 beats per minute. And so what does that add up to in a day? That's 115,200 beats per day. Your heart beats.
Wow.
So I don't even want to try to guess how many that is in a year. It looks like we got 48,000 beats per year.
That's a lot.
42
that adds
million
up.
times in a year. This is big. It's amazing. Our heart's beating even while we're sleeping and all that. So let me go back to my notes here. Let me go back to our little outline so we can stay on task here. What were we? Discuss the long-term impact of cardiovascular on the quality of life, and how we can prevent it. So you did want to talk about this. We wanted to talk about some things that we can do to prevent cardiovascular disease, improve our cardiovascular health.
Yeah. So if you like, we can go into that now.
Yeah, I know you're excited about that. So let's
go. For sure.
High
on the list is something that I learned from a cardiologist that I interviewed in a podcast I did a couple of years ago. And he said, test, don't guess. And so one of the best things we can do is get our blood measured regularly, at our primary care doctor. And in regards to heart health, arterial health, the things that are most important to look at, and I think everybody on the planet knows this, and that is our cholesterol, which is divided into 2 main metrics, HDL and LDL. And then the third guy in the list would be triglycerides. So if we can know those, and I'll talk about the, healthy ranges, where we're talking about, that you might have some risk, then you get into other things. But Let's go there next. So what is HDL? It's an acronym, high density lipoprotein. You don't need to remember that. Lipoprotein means it's a molecule wrapped in protein. And how HDL or high density is differentiated from LDL, the other one, low density, is that HDL has more protein than fat. LDL has more fat than protein. And so the LDL becomes more the troublemaker.
And they call
Because
that's
when
the bad.
that's the bad one.
Yeah.
When those guys bounce around in our arteries, they're more likely to get stuck. That fat content makes them a little bit harder to, clean out. And the HDL ones are a lot more protective. They lower inflammation, so they're considered kind of heart healthy.
Yeah. So when you think about HDL, think of that H as the happy. The happy
I like that.
cholesterol.
Yes.
That's how I remembered it when I was in nursing school. Like, oh, H is for happy.
I like
HDL,
that.
we want more HDL.
Yeah, I was always heard H is healthy and L is lousy. So there's
okay, that's good too.
right.
So and triglycerides.
And triglycerides are strictly a matter of what we put in our mouth. So that's just the fat particles that we consume in our diet.
Yeah.
So
and when we talk about the fat, we're not talking about healthy fats, triglycerides.
yeah. Well, remember, fat is doesn't dissolve in water, so therefore it's going to kind of exist in our bloodstream. And just like the LDL story,
Right.
if your triglycerides build up too much, they're going to be more likely to get stuck in those arterial channels and cause problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
the HDL, the LDLs, triglycerides, these things that are going to build up inside of our arteries and cause problems. And they can cause clots, which can cause stroke. And then also, just real quick, let's talk about this real quick. Why this is important is that we want to have a healthy heart, and your heart's going to work really hard if your arteries are clogged like that. You're going to weaken your heart. Your heart's going to be working really hard. And that's where blood pressure builds up. That's how you have high blood pressure. I don't know if you were going to talk about that, but what high blood pressure basically is, if you just want to keep it simple, it's whenever your heart is pumping and the pressure is building up in those arteries because it's not flowing freely. There could be plaque in there, right? And there's also like hardening of the arteries and that kind of stuff. But that's what that is basically. How come your blood pressure is increasing? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's important to manage high blood pressure with, medicine if needed. So definitely a major risk factor.
Yeah. All right. And
So
did you want to talk about the ranges if you do
yeah,
get your blood work done? So you
yeah,
can
if that's
kind of
okay. Yeah, real quick. HDL, the high density or the happy or the healthy one, we want that to be as higher as possible. Now, there's a practical limit where you don't want to make it 1,000,000, but anything above 40 is considered healthy or minimally healthy. If you can get that HDL to sit above 60, and we're talking about nanogram per deciliter, but
Okay.
60 is considered highly protective. And in my experience, and I've read about this on PubMed and stuff, you can boost your HDL through protocols like with resistance training.
Yeah.
And also with weight loss for individuals who need to lose weight. So those two things really contribute to improvements in your HDL.
Yeah. And exercise, like just cardiovascular exercise.
For sure.
As well.
Absolutely. And we're going to get in, that's on my list of interventions.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's our HDL. Now remember the LDL, the lousy, we want to keep that one as lower as possible. And so what's considered acceptable or normal or healthy is kind of generally speaking underneath 100. So underneath 100 nanogram per deciliter, even lower if you're a high risk person. So if you have a first degree relative that had problems, or if you have high blood pressure or what have you, your cardiologist or your doctor might even want that to be sitting at 70 or 50. So that's where, you need to consider interventions, because a lot of people inherit their cholesterol profile from their ancestors. So thank you, mom and dad.
Right.
We make our cholesterol, generally speaking, versus, consuming it. So for some people, a lot of people, the statin therapy might really be the tool that you need to help to keep that under control.
So because you mentioned that, hereditary things, genetic things, so it's my understanding that the research is still being, it's still happening, because there's no definitive answer about cholesterol. Is it genetic? Is it diet related? I think it's both, but primarily, many people have cholesterol issues because of genetics. And so, yes, even more so important to do everything you can, but also just understand that it's not just diet. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a common myth that, you need to avoid eggs, for example, because they're high in cholesterol. They're a great food item if you like them. Some people don't like eggs. A friend of mine doesn't, but they're a great source of protein. But what we know about eggs is they really don't contribute to blood serum cholesterol, maybe a little bit, like 10%, but not significant source. So, if you're looking to prioritize your protein, don't skip out on good stuff like that. Having said that, there are things that come with more risk, like foods that are high in saturated fats.
Yeah.
So think about red meats. Those you really do want to control and keep those in moderation, know?
Right. And like butter and
Yes, whole milk
creams,
stuff.
like
Exactly.
that.
Agree.
Yeah, but the point though is that I think, like you said, like there's a myth that we do need to understand that just because you're eating eggs does not mean that's going to increase your cholesterol. That does not necessarily mean that.
And I think doctors used to proclaim that it did.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's old sciencey stuff. That's not true.
Very true. Yeah.
So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I had a quote from my cardiologist regarding LDL before we leave the blood labs. She told me the coolest thing, for someone like me who has high LDL, for every 39 milligram per deciliter reduction in LDL, we reduce the risk of heart attack, stroke, and cardiovascular death by 22%. So that's really important. My LDL used to be like, I don't know, 170, so quite high. And, I got on the statin bandwagon earlier this year, and now it's sitting in the 70s. So it's a lot more manageable.
That's great.
Absolutely.
We want that to be under 100. So
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it's funny because I think people don't understand. I think a lot of people don't realize that when they go, well, what's your cholesterol? Like, they got to understand that cholesterol is made up of those three types. And they say that just to say, like, oh, is your cholesterol under, 200 basically is the desirable. But that 200 is made up of like what your range is for your LDL, your HDL, and your triglycerides. So.
And that's a really good point you make, because if you have high HDL, meaning the healthy or happy kind, that's going to make your total score higher. And that's okay. That's an okay reason.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's true. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
What else were we going to talk about when it comes to that? There was something else.
Yeah, on our intervention list, we talked about testing and knowing your metrics a little bit. The next one is to prioritize and increase your fiber intake.
Yeah,
so this is something that most Americans have a problem with.
Yeah, we talked about this when we did, which, by the way, we do have an episode because Brett and I were on this. Have we been together on a podcast more than once, or was it?
I think just once. Just metabolic. Once? Yeah.
We did that. We talked all about gut health. Yeah, that was fun.
That's awesome.
We talked about the fiber, so let's dive in here on the fiber.
Well, this one varies between men and women, and you can actually find a little calculator website if you really want to get nerdy, but it's really not that complicated. Basically, try and get about 30 grams of fiber per day. And for men, maybe it's a little bit more, so maybe up to 40, but thereabouts 30 to 40.
Yeah, and I tell our women around 28 grams at least a day for fiber. And yeah, go ahead.
When you advise your clients, like, what are your ideas to, boost people's fiber intake? I'd love to get into that. Talk about what you do and what I do.
Yeah. You're trying to stump me. Is that what
yeah. Is it working?
No, I think that fiber, is just now starting to become people are becoming more and more aware of how important it is. I mean, Brett, we're talking about the importance of protein all the time, but fiber is up there also. Like, it's a big, big deal. I find it kind of amusing how some of these products like Cheerios and oats are always like, lower your cholesterol by eating Cheerios, and basically what they're trying to let you know is that's the fiber that's helping you in your gut health and your digestion. So yes, I do. I mean, getting plenty of vegetables, getting plenty of like greens, like broccoli, cauliflower, spinach. These are the kind of things. Berries, raspberries are high in fiber. Avocados high in fiber, surprisingly. But yeah, it's so important. I think people don't realize, number one, it's just fantastic and good for your gut. It's good for your gut health. It's good for your digestion, get things moving along. It actually helps you with your hydration, and it helps you. It also helps you with the health of your digestive system. And then on another note, if you're dieting, if you're in a calorie deficit, you definitely want to make sure you're getting plenty of fiber, because that's going to help you stay satisfied. So it gives you that satiety throughout your day, making sure you're getting plenty of fiber as well. So yeah, of course. And and complex carbohydrates like your grains, like we were just talking about, like oats and some seeds, and and those beans and legumes, those are the kind of things too that are also high in fiber. So yeah, fiber is a big
Yeah,
deal, way bigger deal than people
absolutely.
are making it out to be. And I think that we should all do ourselves a big favor by getting a big Rockstar salad almost every day.
Yeah, 100%. And people ask me sometimes, well, what's the best vegetable? And the answer is whichever one you enjoy the most, because
Yeah, there
that's
you
what you're
go.
going to eat,
That's right. That's right.
And to your point, even with breads, some people think, oh no, breads are, I want, those are carbs. I don't want all that. But if you pay attention to the nutrition label, there's a bread that Alan Aragon got me interested in called Dave's Killer
Oh
Bread.
yeah, I
And
eat Dave's Killer Bread all the time.
we
All
have
of
it
our
here too.
people love it. Yeah.
It's got protein, it's got
Yeah.
fiber.
Fiber.
It's
Yep.
wonderful.
It is. And to your point, when it comes to grains, like if you do like to make your own healthy, like I don't know, breads, waffles, pancakes out of oats, or not of oats, I'm sorry, back up, out of flour, I do recommend that you take a look at, there are so many different kinds of flours, and you will see, you look at that nutrition label and you'll be able to see the different amounts of fiber in the different types of flour, whether it's rice flour, oat flour, wheat flour. I think there's another one called Amarnath flour. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a lot of different kind of flours, and so you're not stuck to just eating wheat flour. There's a lot of different kinds of flour, especially if you're gluten intolerant, gluten bothers you. Man, just choose an oat flour and make your stuff. That's what I
Absolutely.
do. So
And then
yeah.
before we move off of fiber, do we want to talk about how fiber works to help the heart?
Yeah, we talked about that. We just want to make it real simple. Go ahead.
Well, so what we learned, you and I together, soluble fiber, that's the fiber that dissolves in water. That's all that means. It helps bind to our digestive acids. They're called bile acids. The bile is created by cholesterol. So essentially, fiber is helping us to digest our fats. And anyway, the end result of using fiber is it helps the reducing the buildup of plaques in our arteries, because it kind of keeps the pipes cleaned out, if you will, in terms
Right,
of
that's how it
cholesterol.
does it. And the soluble fibers, the examples are like oats and barley, beans, legumes, the things I just talked about. These are the things, the vegetables, like the Brussels sprouts, sweet potatoes, broccoli, nuts and seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds. Yeah. So, and like I said, it's avocados is high in fiber, also soluble fiber.
Very good. Okay, so we're doing our regular blood testing. So good for you. We're prioritizing our fiber. You're
Yes.
amazing. What's the next thing we have to do? And that is exercise.
Yes. Now we get into the good stuff, the fun
So
stuff.
this is easy to say, exercise. What does that mean? We're really trying to get at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and more is better generally. We want to get our heart rate elevated. So let's talk about that. I'll let you lead off a little bit.
Yeah, I know, because there was a trend for a while in the fitness industry where it was like, you don't need cardio to, lose fat, get strong, fit, just go in the gym and lift weights. And then they were neglecting our heart health, and heart health is a big deal. And I think that, just because I understand that, I know anatomy and physiology, so I am not just going to go in the gym and strength train, although it is also good for your cardiovascular health. However, we do want to increase the strength of our heart and our heart health. And the way to do that is by doing cardio exercise, something that elevates our heart rate. And we can talk about the different heart zones, not get into the weeds about it, but keeping it very simple, because there is a difference between just getting your steps every day, which is great and very important. But your heart health is important in terms of like strengthening your heart through cardiovascular exercise, which is increasing your heart rate and staying in a prolonged increased heart rate for at least 20 minutes, I believe, minimum, that's going to be cardio. So you're not necessarily getting cardio if you're elevating your heart rate for 5 minutes. That's not staying like a steady state cardio, not in a steady cardio state, I should say. So one of the ways to do that very simply is, I know you can count your beats per minute and see, are you in one of these target zones, which we talk about zone 2 kind of being like the optimal range for staying in a steady state of cardio, zone 2. And you can bring the numbers out because I know you're all about the numbers, Brett. But I like to keep things very simple. And I tell you, if you're doing cardio fitness, say you're jogging or you're cycling, whatever it is, if you're able to carry on a conversation, you're still a little bit out of breath, but you can complete sentences. It's the talk test. And you can still say 1 or 2 sentences while you're doing that activity, then that's basically, you're in that steady state cardio, zone 2.
Very cool. And then I have to do a public service announcement about getting your steps, because I only learned this yesterday and I was so excited. On my iPhone.
I'm not dogging steps, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Your phone. You are cracking me up with that. Where you been, bro?
I've been worried about my steps. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been reading you need 6,000 or 7,000 steps, maybe more, maybe less. I'm like, am I getting that many? I don't know.
You are so funny, and I know you get a lot of steps.
I do. I take a sunrise walk every morning. I go to my favorite park every day. So I figured I was probably okay. But I just found this app on the smartphone. It's called the Health app. It's white with a red heart.
Funny, dude.
And my phone's been stalking me for years. And
Where have you been? Oh my God.
It's been there. I just haven't been there. So
no, and I just took for granted that you knew, because we talk about you taking steps and all this stuff all the time. And I'm like, you told me this the other day. I'm like, what? You're just learning about the health app.
I'm the last one on the planet.
Yes, it's been stalking you. Yes, which is cool, right? Because now you can see the history of
it's motivating.
steps.
Yeah, and you can make goals. It's very cool.
But what's the beautiful thing is that you've been doing that naturally. You're not like looking at your watch and making sure it's tracking you. Like, you have been doing this for your health, which is awesome.
For about 5 years or 4 years. Yeah. And, some people, my sister doesn't bring her phone when she goes on walks. So then it doesn't know because it's not with you. So you got to bring your phone. That's all I'm saying.
If you want to track it. But let's not, what I tell everybody is, like, we don't want to get so tied down to our fitness tracker. Some people get really mad, like, oh, I did this and I forgot my watch. It's like, listen, girl, your body is tracking. So no worries. You did it. Your body's tracking.
Very true. Okay, so that's a good word on exercise. The next one we kind of already covered, and that is to limit your saturated fat intake. So I don't know much more to say there. Just your red meats, your, whole milk, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The next one's a big one, and it's kind of a big topic in America. Limit your alcohol. Mm-hmm. And we can say this for a minute. There's no benefit to alcohol. It has nothing for you. Some crazy people might have thought, well, a glass of red wine might help my heart because it has resveratrol and maybe it increases my HDL. BS. None of it is good for you. Now, you can still have some and live your life. Just know that it's not for health reasons.
Yeah. Agreed.
And along with alcohol is sugary drinks. So one thing I learned was, if you exceed your calorie intake for the day, be it from excess food, be it from alcohol or sugary drinks, the liver converts your excess calories into triglycerides. So right away, you're creating problems for your heart health.
Yeah. And just thinking about our heart health in general, like, there's other things that are going to impact your heart health, right? Like high stress, not getting enough sleep, not resting. I mean, because your heart is having to work overtime when you are not taking care of your body in these other ways and making sure you're getting plenty of rest. I mean,
Such a good point.
That's going to wear out your heart. And that's how it's related to health span. Because if you have a healthy, strong heart, obviously it's going to be able to keep pumping and beating a lot longer and helping you stay alive, healthy. Health span, not just longevity.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want to be in your 60s and be traveling the world and climbing ruins and stairs, you got to have good knees and a good heart. And so this is an investment for your future.
Yeah. And because all those things, if your heart is not healthy and it's working really hard to pump the blood through, I mean, your blood's carrying your oxygen, All right. And so, like, your heart is having to work hard to push that through. And if it's not going through efficiently, you're not getting oxygen to all of your tissues in your body. And that's why you're out of breath. You're trying to get oxygen. It's all this comes together. This is why when I say do your cardiovascular exercise, do your cardio, get it in. Don't make it like it's a chore to do. Like, just that it's something you enjoy doing, finding something you enjoy to do, like, baby jogging, cycling, something that gets your heart rate up for a prolonged period of time, not crazy. A lot of people hate running because they run too fast. You don't need to run fast to get a great cardio workout. Maybe you like to do dancing. Maybe you like to do aerobics, something that keeps up your heart rate up for a while. Um, but these things that you're doing is helping your heart and your lungs. Like, forget cardio for fat loss and burning calories. Like, how is that fun? That's no fun, but just think about how you're going to feel better. It is going to increase your mood because you get the endorphins, and that helps your mood, and that helps you feel good too. But yeah, you're making your heart stronger, and you're helping your lungs your lungs and your heart become more efficient at pumping your blood. And your blood is what carries all the nutrients and your oxygen all throughout the tissues of your body, for your health.
Yeah, you made a good point. And to your point about find something that you like, I know I tried bicycling and I really don't like it. So if you think, oh my gosh, I have to do that to make my heart healthy, it's not fun. You're not going to do it.
Right? Yeah.
But just like you have your beach and your beautiful ocean and Gulf of Mexico, I found the park I love. It's got pelicans and turtles, and I mean, I go there every day, and I
Yeah.
just love it. And I do a brisk walk and get my zone 2 that way. And so everybody's got to find what's the best for them.
Yeah, and I know you say your brisk walk. I don't know if you're watching your heart rate, your heart zone during that time, but I do want to clarify this. Going on a brisk walk is not cardio, and I'm not speaking to you because I don't know what your heart rate is. For some people, depending on their heart condition, it could be cardio for them.
Yeah.
This is why you do need to see, what's going on with your heart zones. Do you have the numbers there for the different target heart zones?
I don't. I
Oh,
don't have it
okay. That's
handy.
another episode. I think I talked all about it in another episode on cardiovascular fitness. But basically, if you are obese, your heart may not be in a condition to do something like a baby jog or prolonged. You got to build up to it. It's not something you just want to jump into. Like, I'm going to make my heart strong right now. Like, you just do it slowly, but pay attention to that talk test. That's all you need. If you're doing a brisk walk and you are having trouble keeping one or two sentences while you're talking, that's just stay right there. Don't push yourself too hard. But we all have to start wherever we are, and cardio workouts are all about your heart and your lung health. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, just to finish my list, one of these things is obvious, and I hope none of our listeners are doing this or that they're working on quitting, and that is please stop smoking. So that's had to list that. And then the last ones are just a little bit kind of more medicine, and that is control your blood pressure, make that a priority if that's a problem for you, and then consider statin therapy if you have a high cholesterol profile.
Yeah.
So those are effective tools, safe and effective.
And I want to talk about that, about lung health. We can get back to those medications real quick. I know you had something else you wanted to say about the medications, I think, but when it comes to smoking cigarettes or even those vapes that people are using, I just want to speak to that for a second. What's the reason why we want to not do that? And I'm gonna give I have a personal story here with this. When I was a kid, my parents smoked. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and everybody smoked cigarettes, and I lived in cigarettes, and people were smoking in the house, right? It was like everywhere. So when I was a teenager, I dabbled with smoking cigarettes, and I got addicted, and I started smoking cigarettes, and I smoked cigarettes off and on throughout my young adult life. But not openly. I was really ashamed of it. I'll be honest with you. I was a closet smoker, and whenever I did get addicted, and I would break it off, and I would stop smoking cigarettes. And then I would have stressful times, and I'm like, start smoking again. So I was off and on, but every time I smoked cigarettes, I hated it. I hated that I was addicted. I hated the smell. I was mad at myself that I got addicted and I couldn't stop it. It's a very addictive habit. But I'll tell you what, and I did that off and on for 14 years. And I was a closet smoker. I don't want anybody to know. It was embarrassing for me personally, because I just knew that that was not good for your health. I remember as a little girl, I didn't want my mom smoking. I was like, stop smoking, mommy, you know. But here's the thing. When I went to nursing school, this is when I quit smoking, like cold turkey, forget it, I am never smoking again, was when I was in anatomy and physiology class. And we went through a whole section on the lungs and gas exchange and understanding what your lungs actually do on a molecular level and how the gas exchanges. What's happening when you're smoking cigarettes is the inside of the lining of your lungs is getting caked up with tar. And I'm sure you've seen these pictures. It's like all of this stuff's going on. Your inside of your lungs is collecting tar.
Wow.
And when your lungs are collecting tar, what that's doing is it's covering up the surface area on the inside of your lungs, which blocks the gas exchange. And this is why you're not getting efficient oxygen exchange in, in your body. You're lacking oxygen. And yeah, it's bad for your heart, right? All that stuff's happening in your lungs. And I'm telling you, I saw that and I'm like, oh my God, I quit smoking cigarettes and I was never picked up another one since then. So
Wow.
the importance, and the thing with people vaping, I know people go, well, I'm vaping, it's not smoke. But let me tell you, I want you to think about this for your own health, because there's not enough long-term studies on how that's affecting us. And let's just think about this logically. I mean, was our body naturally intended to take in nicotine or any kind of unnatural way of inhaling something into our lungs? No. So just thinking about that, just kind of like on a level-headed, logical thing, right? Like, just think about that for your health and for the health of your lungs. So I just put that out there because I'm a nurse and I'm a coach, and I really am saying this not to slap you on the back of the hand, but just say, really think about this for your health. It's up to you to decide that you don't want to do that to your lungs.
Yeah. And
So
it's
yeah.
particulates from, our environment of any kind is not good.
Yeah, there's enough stuff out there that we're inhaling into our lungs. Why do we want to make it worse?
Double
Yeah. So
challenging.
anyway, with those medications you were talking about, Brett.
Well, I just wanted to give a quick plug for a couple of tests. And the cardiologist that I interviewed a couple of years ago actually brought these up, and I've done them. They're for people that have a risk factor, like maybe your cholesterol profile is high and you want to investigate more about your risk. One is a popular one known as the calcium score, and it's a gentle CT of your heart. It takes very little amount of time. It's very low risk, and it shows the amount of calcified plaque in your arteries.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a score that ranges from 0 to 1,000 or more. And anything below 100 is considered low risk. So I watched mine creep up from like 20 to 40 to 60. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's time for me to consider a statin therapy,
Yeah.
So that's a really good one for people if you're curious as to your risk and your plaque buildup. What's interesting is my biological sister, has a score of 0.
Oh,
So
wow.
family members can have very different answers.
Interesting.
Yeah. The other thing that I really like to do, I do this about once every 2 years, is the carotid ultrasound test. It's called the CIMT,
Mm-hmm.
fancy words, carotid intima media thickness. But basically, they put a wand with some goo on your neck, and they measure the thickness of your carotid arteries, the arteries going to your brain. And it reveals what's called your arterial age. And one thing that I thought was really cool and motivating for me, this data, is my arterial age has been decreasing as I've been, of course, going around the sun more times. So I went from 53 to 55 to 57, and my arterial age is marching down. And currently it's like 30, 34 years old. So
check you out.
That's
Wow.
motivating to me,
That
you
is
know?
motivating. I totally agree. I agree. This is why I think it's so important for us to get those comprehensive blood work panels so we can know
Yep.
what's going on. Because we have chronological age, but we can do something about our biological age with our activity levels, our nutrition, all of these things. They can make
Yeah,
a difference. They can make a
absolutely.
huge difference. You can improve your health. I know people think, well, I'm already old, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can still make improvements in your health, in your cardiovascular health, like you're talking about.
Quickly even. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
This is the number one of the 4 horsemen.
We did it.
And we just, I feel like we just scratched the surface, but these are really the important things that we wanted to just kind of go over and just remind us all how important it is to take care of our cardiovascular system, our lungs, our hearts, our veins and our arteries, all the vessels in our body. So, and it's never too late to do these things. So get your fiber, get your steps in, get your cardio.
Skip your booze.
Get your rest. Yeah, but you want to make your heart strong. Your heart is, remember this, your heart is a muscle. And if you're not exercising that heart, it's getting weaker. And you want to keep that heart strong. And that's what this is all about. Like getting that heart strong and keeping the arteries clear so the heart can pump easily. And you can live a healthier lifespan, not just a long lifespan, but a healthier lifespan.
Amen.
Any other last minute things or last things you want to say, Brett, about
No, I think that
horsemen?
Yeah, really, that covers my prepared comments. And yeah, I think we covered what you can do and what you can skip doing to make everything better. So let's get after it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brett, for joining me for this episode. I appreciate you. I love that we get to talk about all this kind of stuff. You get a little more into the details. I like to keep things very simple because it doesn't need to be complicated. And I do want to just mention real quick before you go, and tell our listeners, I have an exciting masterclass coming up for women over 40, fat loss over 40. The 3 secrets to sustainable success. This is going to be a free masterclass coming up September 10th at 5 p.m. Central. And so the information is going to be inside the show notes, so you can sign up for that. And that's what we got today, Brett. Thank you so much for being here today. And I look forward. I don't know when we're going to do our next one, but we're planning it. We don't know which one it's going to be, but this is one of 4. And thank you so much for being here, Brett. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
All right.